Hey, and welcome to the Weed Out, when we talk about the bullshit happening in our backyard and try to get it out. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, and along with this week's co-host is Laura Saylor. Laura,
Hi there,
what's up?
Spencer. Hi, Spence. Great to be back.
It is great to be back. I guess a little housekeeping. We should probably mention that you are on the ballot for November's election.
I am.
Yeah. So anybody that's interested in what Laura is running for, just remind everybody what seat you're running for. And
I'm running for state senate in Bristol and Norfolk. Saylorforsenate.com.
yeah, so go check it out and check. You always learn a lot about Laura when she comes on the show. She's a regular. So if you want to see more about her and her campaign, please go to that website. I'll link it in the show notes. And as always, you can go to www.theweedout.com and get any information about the episodes we are listening to, and I put them in the show notes. Joanna says, what's up, everybody? She's had a really busy summer. Just wanted to shout her out, and she'll be back on the airways soon, I think. We kind of fly at the seat of our pants here at the Weed Out, but because we're working people, and whatever. And as things come up, we do can. So this week we're actually going to be discussing I don't know, exchanges of ideas between the Israeli occupational forces, or as they call themselves, the Israeli Defense Force, IDF, and American policing. They like to do exchange programs, and since Israel is kind of our military base in the Middle East that we fund, and as Biden, current commander-in-chief, said famously, if there weren't Israel, the United States would have to invent one. Because of the strategic, and I disagree.
I think the majority do disagree.
I think it's not strategic because you create tensions that don't belong there, and it's really naked. It's to control supply lanes. It's to control interest, to leverage other countries in the region that have things we want, and we being the West, the empire, Britain, France, United States, we're the muscle, but these other countries are very much in play here. So we do a lot of law enforcement exchange with them, most famously in Georgia, but all over the country, even in your backyard. So what they do is they basically learn they exchange ideas on how they're oppressing the working class and marginalized in their communities. So a lot of the violence that you see day to day in the West Bank and Gaza, prior to this current genocide, was very similar to how our American policing works in places like the Bronx or Chicago, or name your American city, actually.
Holyoke.
Holyoke. Yeah, Holyoke. Stick around for GHOULERY and TOMFOOLERY on that. There is Holyoke, GHOULERY, and TOMFOOLERY. So that's a little plug for later. And this will all tie together. So Laura wants to come on and talk about that exchange. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And yeah, it's just as ghoulish. And I'm sure most of our listeners know. And this is tied to the Cop City movement. Stop Cop City, excuse me. I do not want cop cities. And, this is relevant to who is currently running for office, former prosecutor, very pro-police. And then on the other side, a guy that wants to use the infrastructure that people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have spent their careers building to do violence on fellow humans on Turtle Island, because no human is illegal. And we don't live in the United States. We live on somebody else's land. So let's, I think, changing our mindset on that. And all of this is wrong. And it's kind of gross because, like, whatever you're seeing on your phone about Gaza, the United States is fine to doing it to your neighbors and you. And I mean, hey, they've literally bombed city blocks. So the move bombing in Philly. So, Laura, I got my whole intro in, so I would love to hear what are your thoughts on this exchange, and how has it personally affected your activism in Mansfield?
Well, in Mansfield, Ron Sullivan has done I think a number of articles on his, he would say he went over to Israel to train, or he went on an exchange, and
A
he
pig that can write?
the
That
partner.
feels. Wait. You said Ron Sellein writes articles?
Well, that he'll do it. He'll do an article at the Sun
No,
Chronicle.
no, no. But a pig that can write. That feels like
Oh,
a
he
kind
doesn't
of
write it. He goes to the Sun Chronicle and they interview him and
slap
they
his
write.
name on it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Or the
So,
police association would write something for him to
or
say.
they would say, Ron Sellein says, and like just write down what he told them.
Right.
But he's been a big praiser of that. I think what's most important is what you brought up in the beginning, before we began recording. We talked about this subject and where we were both going to go with it. That that the word exchange, I think, is so important. And I'd like to go into why the word exchange is important when you're talking about U.S. police and Israel and their relationship.
Yep.
The reason it's so important is that the IDF is a brutal occupation force. They act in partnership with U.S. police. They're not training U.S. police. They act in partnership with U.S. police. That is the reason you see a lot of these cop cities that they're building have an IDF component to it, where IDF can come and train with them or hold training classes.
Or they build like not a living quarters for visitors.
Right.
So and it's also so domestically, like a group of officers from Boston can go down and cross train with these specialists, these anti-terrorism task force or whatever the fuck they do.
That's what they call it. Yeah. So I think it's important that I think it's kind of also kind of anti-Semitic to state the other way that Israel is causing our police, U.S. police to be brutal and evil.
And even if it's not anti-Semitic,
right,
it's acting like the United States is benign. We just exist, and these things happen.
Yeah.
No, bitch, we're actively doing this.
Yeah.
We're actively participating. Our government actively participates in these things. It's not passive. So yeah,
right.
like even if you're not saying something kind of, even if it's the anti-Semitism thing is a problem because it's getting so diluted and what that means, but because that is actually anti-Semitic to say that Jews control the United States. It's like, first of all, Zionism and Judaism aren't the same thing. So
no,
the Zionists, if anything, control our government, but that's not true at all. It's the other way around, or it's at least an equal exchange, mutually beneficial. Like, yeah, they have to live in an area where there's aggression around them. Like, they have to violently uphold their borders. Like, that is a mental cost. Like, imagine being a colonial or a pioneer back in the colonial days. Laura Ingalls Wilder moving her dad moving them out into the prairie and like having to rough it and like deal with fucking indigenous people resisting them, and we never know, they might raid us at night because that's what the Indians do. And it's like, bitch, your aggression on their land, dude. Like, what? But like, that's how they must feel. They must feel like what it felt in the 1850s in the reaches of the United States.
I think you saw that in the U.S. South too.
Oh,
you
yeah.
see that too,
I think you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just here, it's like, people, we're seeing the Palestinians getting eradicated in real time. And a lot of people can openly talk about what we did to the indigenous on Turtle Island here, where so-called United States, but they're gone for the most part. I mean, there's obviously still remnant. A lot of their culture has been destroyed and kept from them with the reform schools and all this stuff, or just straight up like neglecting their health and letting them die from preventable issues like clean water and putting them on barren land and then moving them again. It's like that takes a toll on people. And then there's obviously the cross, the next generation of kids being mixed, not 100% whatever. And that's, people got to survive in the situation they are. So that's how it happens. But we've essentially ethnically cleansed them off this land.
I know it.
And it's really gross. And I think a lot of people are struggling with seeing that happen in Gaza with their like cognitive dissonance. It's like, no, we did that here. We are living. If we don't stop this, the reality is that in 100 years, the Middle East will be just like the United States, in the sense that it has been taken over by Westerners. It's like,
Well, you know what I think is going to happen? I think
I don't think it's going to go that way. I don't think it's sustainable, but
it's not.
I
It's
think
really
the United States really, imagine if there were smartphones during the 1820s, during slavery times. Like,
well. Here's the thing, though, right? We're experiencing all of this at the same time. Climate change is hitting us like a ton of bricks. It's getting obvious. We've got COVID at worse rates than it's ever been. We've got we're in the middle of a surge now. Now we got monkeypox.
yeah, it's eugenics.
That's
they're doing eugenics.
It's airborne now too.
Great.
And you know, polio is now rearing its head again in Gaza. There's just the bird flu. And they're not doing anything. They've dismantled the public health system.
Yep. And they're building these cop cities.
The cop cities. And, you know, I'm sorry, this is a huge bipartisan effort.
It's actually more driven by the Democrats.
I agree with you there. I agree with you. And you know what?
Democrats build the infrastructure, and then the fascist right.
Yep.
And then the reason the Republicans can't stay in charge for too long is because they literally, like, they would stiff police down the line.
Oh, always.
They stiff everybody. So, like, eventually they won't have the backing of the armed force. So you need the Democrats to come in, and everybody can pretend to be mad at the Democrats. And Democrats are like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's more money. Here's more money.
Yep.
And then here we are. 40% of our fucking budget goes to imbeciles with fucking dysfunctional anger issues.
Yep. And yeah, it's outrageous. Actually, it's I don't.
My job. Sorry.
No, I think that unfortunately, the way things are going and they're unfolding, and I think it's important to keep an eye on Israel, and it's important to keep an eye on what's going on with Gaza, and it's important to make the connection between U.S. police and the IDF. However, like you and I were discussing it. It also really definitely matters that you see it as an exchange. The people that make the biggest deal out of calling it training, almost without an exception, are usually reform-minded Democrats. Well, you've got to train them to make them better. You've got to train them. And they call it IDF training. And they've been able to get, you know, the suburban Democrat crowd to really buy into that shit. And we're seeing the effects on these crackdowns on college kids. The cops were acting kind of like an IDF unit. They're acting just like it. They're going on calls for mental health people, and like there was one yesterday I saw. It looked like they were planning who was going to shoot the woman. I don't remember the case because there's been like 4 or 5 this week, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's eugenics in action. It's eugenics in action.
And people are seeing it.
Policing.
The public's seeing this on the unfold in Gaza. The same tactics, and so it's not. I don't think reaching the public as much as it should. I thought with Sonia Massey, I thought, oh boy, we're going to see another George Floyd moment for sure. This is even worse.
No, we're numb to it.
No, that you can. Half the people on the planet don't even know who she is.
More than that, but yeah, I know what you mean. More than half this country, even.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not even a. And that to me it is really foreboding.
Yeah, but you know, back to the wastefulness part of it, and it feels like a money laundering scheme to me.
It does.
Maybe I'm using the wrong word, but so like you build these fake cities. Like I'm just thinking about Cop City on its own, but then you're like, okay, so we have to book airlines. We're gonna have a deal with Delta or whoever, and they're gonna get guaranteed government money and blah 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 blah. All these things right? And it's like how these for-profit prisons and industrial complex stuff like kind of leverage the government.
Right.
But like even down to like the construction level. So these cops are going to be training there. So that means they're going to be using live fire. They're probably going to be using explosives. And that means the builders get to constantly come in and just build something. It doesn't really even have to like work. It doesn't even have to really beat a code because they're just probably going to beat the shit out of it and destroy it. And then they'll rebuild it. And it's like never ending. It's like this fucking loop. We're an excuse. So, and then you build them, especially on the edges of black areas. So even if they don't do anything, it's to remind the people that this machine will crush you.
And you know what you're seeing another reminder of that is the recent grants pass decision and the jumping on over this by Democratic mayors and governors, especially Newsom's been really sociopathic about it, but
they got to clean up for L.
Michelle Wu is no different. She's into this shit too.
They just don't want to deal with it.
But you know what? Those are IDF tactics they're using on those people. They're taking their shit. They're beating on a lot of them. They're dehumanizing them to the public, and it's
gentrification is no different than colonizing.
No,
it's like internal colonizing.
Yeah, and they
internalized colonizing.
They really, and if you notice the marketing of these policies, the talking points and stuff. Oh, people should be able to walk around without blah, 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 dirty needles. Well,
people should have a home.
Open up a needle exchange. They won't have that though. They won't have that because
they should just stop doing it. That's not how people work.
That's not how it works. No,
that's not how people work. You know that. You won't stop being an asshole.
Right.
So imagine trying to get off heroin.
Right.
Heroin's probably a lot more fun than being an asshole. Not gonna lie. Heroin, it's a terrible thing. But maybe if things were legal.
If things were legal,
and we could have safe drugs, and we could have good education on.
Correct.
Like, how come we have that with alcohol? We have kind of robust, like, hey, these are the signs of, like, it's pretty culturally known, like, what alcoholism looks like and like what to doesn't mean everybody follows it, but like the education is there with other drugs. It's a moral failing to do cocaine. I've straight up, I would be on oath. I would do this under oath. I've never done cocaine. I've done drugs. I've never done cocaine. Most people have.
Yeah.
I've done you look at me and you know me, I've done drugs. Like
I know. Yeah.
I've done other drugs, but like never that. It just never interested me. I don't like anything near my nose like that.
You know what I didn't
I'll
like?
Smoke like a chimney, but I don't like putting things up my nose.
I never liked cocaine. I only did a couple times.
Right.
And then what I didn't like about it is, number one, it doesn't last. Yeah. Number two, I always felt like my heart was going to just pound out of my chest and I couldn't calm down. And I felt like,
like an anxiety attack.
I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
But
to each his own.
If you do, good for you. Go for it. One of my good friends that I travel with does it. Good for you. It's not my thing.
Right. But like, it's kind of like cigarettes. Like, some people just have a really adverse reaction to it. No, like their brain chemistry or whatever doesn't tolerate this at all. Like, it's super sensitive.
Right.
Whereas, like, the nicotine receptors in my brain really like it. So.
Right. And like my kids, right? Because I don't care. Smoke pot all day. I love it. But two of my kids like it. One of them, he says every time he smokes, it makes him paranoid and afraid, and like it's not a good time.
Right.
Then don't.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I don't drink a ton because I don't like I will drink. Like, I enjoy a good drink, but like I've never been like, I'm drinking to get drunk tonight. Like, if I get drunk, it's by mistake. It's never there's never a plan, and because usually I'm like, one is enough for me, or two, maybe one in a shot, like a beer in a shot. Like,
as I get older, my stomach can't handle alcohol as well at all. Like, I noticed, and I will on occasion, like if I go out, there's a celebration, whatever, and I'll always have to be a mixed drink with liquor in it, and I pay for it the next day with my stomach.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't even eat for like 2 days.
But
And
imagine if we had robust community education about health and like to listen, how to listen to your body and be in
yeah,
tune. Like, you ever notice, like, you know, yeah, I have that too. And like, you feel seen. Cause like, think about just like social pressure around drinking. Like,
yeah,
right, you can't go to, like, you absolutely can, but it's just a pressure to have at least one. It's fine. Like, if you want one, you want one. But like, I don't know. There's a lot of, it's definitely gotten less like that. Back in the day, it was definitely like stigmatized if you didn't drink. It was so
yeah.
normalized. But again, why can't we have this with other drugs? I think it would really solve a lot of our houseless issues. Like, just the education alone, the safe needle exchanges, the meeting people where people are at.
And give
And just
people like,
no questions. Just like, what do you need? You need clean needles?
right, right.
And like,
You need
oh, so like again, we spent all this money on cop exchanges with these people creating surveillance, and there's all these other systems. But then I'm like, hey, why when I go to the doctor to get like just every year for my physical and they do my cholesterol, why aren't they checking you for STDs without, why do you have to ask? Shouldn't they, you have to opt out? Like, don't you want to know if you have chlamydia? Like, what are we doing? Like,
I
you
know.
know, so I'm here for a physical, and I'm lucky I get to go to a every year. Like,
Well, I
I
mean,
get that, but like, why aren't we even trying to like mitigate these things?
we have
Rather, we're
lived
gonna let
through.
people get it and get punished, so the pharmaceutical companies could sell us the drugs.
That's what it is. We're living
All
through.
of this we could send so much. Sorry, I'm sorry.
We
Save so
have
much money.
just the U.S. government during COVID has just demolished. We don't have a public health system to speak of anymore at all. And I think the cops are a big part of that. They just passed a mask ban in Nassau County, New York.
Yep.
Okay, and a lot of that is they know that the left is coming. They know that the Free Palestine movement isn't going away. They know that people are starting to, rise up a little bit.
So they're gonna weaponize illness. You can't
They're
wear a
going to
mask,
weaponize. You can't wear a mask, and that's quite clearly what they're doing.
and that's
Monkeypox coming though, that's going to be kind of a tough one, because the difference with monkeypox is, as opposed to COVID, is the visuals of it. People are not going to probably play along with that for very long. But I think
What
that,
is monkeypox? Is it just like a form of like, how does it transmitted?
it's disgusting. Well, it used to be they used to say that the main transmission was sexual contact, close
Okay.
contact. Now, though, it's evolved.
Okay.
And I guess now it's to the point where it's airborne.
Cool.
So there are, I guess, I was reading last night, 35 or something like that, people with monkeypox in Nassau County, New York. And they just passed a mask ban. The way that the police behaved at the college campuses and the governmental response to it and the administration responses to it, I think make it clear, as Day, like you and I were saying, and agree upon very much, is that this is not an exchange. Israel is not dictating to the United States. This is a joint effort. Israel, like we've said, Spencer, is basically a U.S. defense base, a colony, right up, in their colony in the Middle East.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and like what I find very sick about all this, especially with all this talk about anti-Semitism, and I find this all deeply offensive. Everything, so many different, the way the liberals talk about conservatives, even some good people that just are not catching their internalized anti-Semitism or internalized racism, and it's hard shit to undo. It's really hard. I don't like think less of people. I just think it's really interesting, and I've struggled with it too. Like, don't get me wrong,
There's
but
ways to point out to a comrade too, like.
but I think at the end of the day, it's the white Christian men. Like, can we stop being like, well, it's the Zionists? It's like, no, they're so these white Christian men, these fucking Western freaks, Elon Musk, and all the people we don't know. My thing is like, they're willing to literally be like, use Judaism as a weapon. Like, that's so fucked up.
That's
to like
their
weaponize.
ideology, though. That's the Christian right ideology. That's why
Oh
you
my
see
God,
a lot of Christian right-wing Zionists. That's why
trying to get
Joe Biden will
yeah,
tell you he's a Zionist because he believes in that like kind of end times philosophy that, they got to gather in Israel, the whole
yeah.
ridiculous anti-Semitic spiel.
Yeah, like the
Um,
Jews got to, they're Jews. What the whole promise of Christianity is basically the people that betrayed Jesus is going,
yeah,
we all
and
know
they
that's
can
not what
convert
happened.
to Christianity or perish in a hellfire. It's
Right.
basically it.
And
Um,
these fucking rich people who believe in nothing, these
mhm,
billionaires who are just
they
evil,
don't.
like just like Elon Musk. I mean, that man believes in nothing.
Oh, he's an asshole.
And
Yeah.
he's like the clown. He's the clown. Like he's the funny one, like goofy one that we all look and point and laugh at or love or adore. Like everybody's got a specific reaction to him. But like how many other of these billionaires? Like we just learned about Harlan Crow like a year and a half ago. The man's like a Nazi collector. And he's like one of the richest men in the world. And he's like buying fucking Supreme Court judges and like probably having like orgies or something with them. They go on these really intimate, it's very freaky shit. So it's like really funny with it's like the deep state, it's a cabal. It's like, doth too much.
Yeah.
Just be just I don't know. The whole thing's got to go. It's illegitimate from the start. Israel and the United States, and that's how Israel is an invention of Western colonial expansion because
It's kind of like I could probably describe it too as like I often say parties like the DSA and the Working Family Party, the WFP in New York. They're nothing more than and Justice Democrats. They're nothing more than a get out the vote wing of the Democratic Party, right?
sure.
Take that and apply that. That's what Israel is to the United States,
Mm-hmm.
basically, right?
Yep.
And what they're doing to the Palestinians there, they've got no qualms about doing here, and they've made that abundantly clear, especially during the campus protests. The way that police have been responding, it seems to be escalating the violence on things like welfare checks or, suspicious person or, something really minor, ending up in a really brutal end. And you're not seeing the outcry over it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's kind of a big problem. We don't have a party right now that's willing to do anything about the police. Both parties are pushing Israel.
I
And
personally think that's why the whole thing's got to be. I mean, I know you agree, but I try to put a happy spin on that. Not happy, optimistic. I guess it's
right,
not really even that optimistic. It's just you can't even really get rid of policing because it would just create a power vacuum and these fucking weirdos that have all this infrastructure already and know-how and how to run their communities. They'll just become little warlords. So like
they would, yeah,
we have to we literally have to abolish the Constitution. Like,
yeah.
because like there's no undoing something that's built on faulty pretenses. Like you can't. Yeah, you got a faulty foundation from the start. This country's illegitimate from 1776 and prior, but like the iteration we know as today, same as Israel as the last 100 years. Like
Mhm.
they're in like to weaponize a really tragic, awful event in history, the Holocaust in 1940s. It's like I don't know. It's really dark shit, and you have to tread lightly. So that's why we say exchange. I guess this is the long way around. It's like all
We
these
have to
things are
have
at
a
play.
massive, and yeah, you can't combat this like tiny step after tiny step. This is bad. This is you're seeing tactics that they use, the IDF, to
Mm-hmm.
raid houses and
Yep.
harass and brutalize people and oppress them. You're seeing it in Holyoke with the paper checks
Yep.
and the stop and frisk that's going on there.
In the wait, and just real quick, this is a little again teaser for GHOULERY and TOMFOOLERY, which will be coming up in the next segment. Um, the teaser is they're literally subsidized security for landlords. They're like patrolling inside apartment buildings and getting lots of arrests, and not great. So we'll talk more about that later, but that's the hint for later. So yeah, Holyoke, right in my backyard. Where Joan is up in that area. Like I don't think they're aggressively this, but they're a sundown town light. Like, you know what I mean? That vibe is still there. That
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're a black person driving through at night and the wrong cop pulls you over, like not good. Like, I wouldn't be shocked, and there's a reason probably a lot of people don't cut through there at night. Like, it's a known thing. Don't go down these kinds of backwood towns if you can avoid it. I get the vibe. I drive for a living. I get the vibe. Like, I pick it up when I'm coming through.
Yeah, it's I don't know, I think they're conditioning the public to accept more violence against marginalized groups.
Oh yeah, that's why I don't like. Sorry.
Especially the homeless and the addicted. That's their very first target. Immigrants. Immigrants are the way immigrants are being treated in the USA today is just really, it's killing me. It's
Laura Healy, for Massachusetts, was she was pro sanctuary cities, or she wasn't. When she was AG, she was pressured a lot by they just can't be allowed. You can't allow sanctuaries, or whatever the argument was from the right.
She's a wicked cop.
But she's like kicking people out of housing or temporary shelter, and putting them in closed prisons, and it's gross, just gross. Like,
yeah, and we was all very happy to conduct that at the city level in Boston against her homeless and addicted population there.
Yep.
It should be noted that Wu was the so-called, the DSA lector, the progressive mass. That was their pick. She was going to do something about the police. And if you look anywhere, you see a lot of these, a lot of cities, you'll see actual activists, and this, saying, wow, this DSA politician, they came in, promising this. They're worse. They're just as bad as what we had before. They perpetuate it.
But again, Mayor Menino would be outright with his fascism.
Right.
We're not going to tolerate this in our town. I'm going to make sure the police have the resources they need, and then, or however, I can't really do it, Menino, but, I didn't even grow up in Boston. I grew up in Quincy, which is, right there where the armpit. But, his policies affected people in Quincy. I know that. Like, he had, Boston has a lot of power, and you have to go through Boston to do a lot of stuff in Massachusetts. So, especially in Quincy, like, we're literally an armpit. Like, Boston and Milton kind of swallow us. So it's like, you have to go Milton, sundown town. So, like, it's crazy. And Quincy was very insular too. Like, it was very much an enclave. But yeah, sorry, tangent. But those cops are training with the IDF, I guess, is really the through line. And I know these freaks.
All the cops are, and I prefer to call it an exchange. I had never thought of this before. I mean, this was my take on it always, but I never thought, what are we going to call this, instead of just going and do like a big explanation about how the IDF and U.S. police collaborate, because the liberals use it as
a deflection.
Well, they use it to get support for funding the police, because in their mind, their viewpoint, at least most of them that I've spoken with, view it as, oh, you got to spend more money on the police so we can train them and train them to do things right, and notice the signs of brutality and all this. And they market these exchanges with the IDF the same way. Why are the New York taxpayers paying for a New York precinct in Tel Aviv? It's an exchange. It's not, Israel causing U.S. police to be brutal.
No, not
This
at
is an
all.
exchange.
And they're
When
exchanging
they get together,
ideas,
they
really.
train together. It's a group exercise always. And you saw that a lot on college campuses a couple months back.
Yeah, like how is it possible that it's allowed by international law, even if the countries agree to it? If we're gonna like do this whole world order thing with the UN and laws, why would you allow two governments to intertwine their military and police
I know it.
forcing?
I
Working
know it.
as allies is different than intertwining, you know.
Right, right.
So like
Well,
USA can use can get how all these things work, and there's also individual political actors that have their own personal ambitions and gains, and that's how things get decided ultimately. But the same thing, it always benefits the oligarchs, it always benefits the rich people. That's really at the end of the day, that's all that matters, and everybody else
right.
gets caught up in the fucking shitstorm. Like Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's lawyer, like okay, yeah, he did what he did, like he broke the law, but like really, are you fucking kidding me? He's the one who benefited kind of the least in this whole thing initially, even like he just got cash. Like, okay,
Isn't it
cool.
isn't it funny how, like, they want all these police and they're always bitching about crime, but, like, when something like they always talk about January 6th, right? "Oh, Trump tried a coup."
No love to Michael Cohen, by the way. I hate that
No,
man.
no, but
He's a grifter too, but he got fucked.
my view on this is that January 6th was a fascist circular firing squad, petty bouge fascists on the outside storming their way in, and the
That shit was
political
funny.
class fascists in both parties inside, and that's how I view it. Um,
Yeah,
and that's
liberals versus conservatives is just right wing infighting.
it is because and like and like and like the evidence of that is clear, right? You saw a bunch of lower level participants, middle class, probably cul-de-sac dwelling Republicans going in there and, raising hell and getting sentences, some of them getting found out, whatever. The actual legislators and people in power that put that thing together, there was really nothing that happened to anybody. So when someone says to me, well, Biden, Harris they got to be better than Trump, right? They're better than Trump. If Biden and Harris gave a shit about Trump, Trump wouldn't be a factor right now. The ruling class gave a shit about Trump being a factor, he wouldn't be one right now. That's a fact.
Yeah, I
You
sometimes
know?
it's I'm just going for the audience. Sometimes Laura and I actually get along really well and have really good rapport. But like sometimes it's hard to like talk to somebody about this when they completely agree with you, because it's like sometimes it's just like I don't even know what to say.
Like, you get it.
Like yeah, I'm like yeah, absolutely, and I'm glad somebody else is saying it probably better than me.
Oh, I don't know
Or
about
in their
that.
way. You're not better, not better. Different
No.
people saying it. That's the whole point here, though. I think everybody just needs to have this conversation in their way. So bringing up, okay, so even when we talk about this, because you could also be doing the work of the neoliberals who are also imperialists by saying, oh, they're training our police, the IDF, because it's pushing more of the blame onto Israel, which could get into the murky anti-Zionism shit. I mean, anti-Semitism shit. And then all that other stuff, that's some alt-right pipeline bullshit, like the Jackson Hinkle starting fucking Communist Party
Yeah,
USA or whatever with
yeah.
Midwestern marks. Like what am I doing here? Like how can you be a communist? I'm not granted I'm not an expert on the social implications in the history of communism. I don't like know the individual history, so I'm sure it's come up before. But um yeah, like how if you're a communist, how could you even believe in
They don't.
being an American?
They're not. Those are what you're really talking about are stressorites, basically. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Those are you used to hear Democrats always call it the red brown alliance, because
Hmm.
you wouldn't vote for the candidate or whatever. But there are stressorites are a thing, and they're always, or you could call them third positionists, and they work their way up. A good example of a third positionist would be Ron Paul, and his popularity came up during the Bush administration. You'd see a lot of people, and they were dedicated to, it was a cult. I'm convinced.
That's
The
Rand
Ron Paul,
Paul's dad.
yeah, I'm convinced that was a cult because I don't know.
I hate that Rand Paul.
But I hate the Pauls. I hate them. I hate both of them, man. They're horrific, and they're absolute, like, proud fascist extremists. They call themselves libertarian.
Yeah, but they also
things they believe in, right?
But they hold weird contrary beliefs to like,
They
and then
do.
sometimes you're like, well, they're weirdly right about that. Like how Rand
Yes.
Paul, like when Rand Paul talked to the Secret Service, he's like, why the fuck are we paying you what we pay you? Like
He's right about that.
are you fucking crazy? And like, yeah, broken clock, I guess. Like, wow, I agree with Rand Paul today. Didn't see that coming. But yeah, they yeah, he's a goofy fuck, and he's no different than RFK, I guess. He would be kind of a third position.
Another one is Tulsi Gabbard. Me and Owen for many years.
Much about her. I just know she's annoying, so I just never went into her lore.
She's actually Hindu Vada.
Okay. I do not know what that means, so you're teaching me something.
That's Indian fascism in the party that's, like, I think currently.
Is that a slur or the actual name?
No, that's what they are. The Hindu Vadas. They're
Hindu
Vada. Her family is, and she was raised in it, and she holds some very fascist views.
Of course, she's a military kind of person, right?
Yes, but she's also, like, pretty anti-gay, and she's very Ron Paul-like. We'll put it that way. And once in a while, she'll say something that, oh yeah, wow, that was spot on. But, like, then she'll say something like homophobic or, like, warmongering in another sense. Like, I think she was into Ukraine. She thinks Ukraine was a good idea or whatever. RFK is another one, the Zionism.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an option on the ballot that is an anti-Zionist that will stop this genocide. I mean, come on.
So what's funny about RFK is he wants to dismantle the CIA, but he wants to support endless support for Israel. It's like, how are you gonna do that with CIA, my guy?
I know it.
Like, do you think we're stupid? I know that you got personal vendetta because the CIA probably got your family killed, but they also weren't angels, so I really don't give a shit that they died.
I don't care either.
I don't care. They weren't good people either, and I'm not saying they should have been assassinated or that's. It was clearly because other bad people. And
think about it this way, Spence. Right? We've had Kennedy politicians, like Kennedys are considered royalty in the Democratic Party, right? And right now, our JFK, Joe Kennedy Jr., Joe Kennedy III, was my Congress critter. And he decided to run for Senate. And they basically, shoehorned his cousin Auchincloss in there. RFK running for president. And they're not good people, the Kennedys.
No.
They're really nasty, fucking, really nasty people. I mean, like, they're very Zionist. Jake Auchincloss is incredibly Zionist.
Right. And then they claim their Irishness, and you're like, bro, no.
Yeah, I know.
No.
They don't care about that.
Not Auchincloss, but the Kennedys. They claim they're like, you know, we were, we came up from the, that era of Irish immigration that was really hard. That was kind of their initial selling point, and like they overcame. JFK, like being the first Irish Catholic president, was a big fucking deal. It was a big deal. I grew up in the 90s. I was a middle schooler and high schooler in the 90s and early 2000s. So like JFK was still revered in my like community. Like he was
everywhere you go, yeah.
And now we got Joe Biden in office, a quote unquote the most devoted Christian in office since like the 50s, probably Eisenhower. Because he goes to church so much. It's like great. Donald Trump golfs a lot. He goes and talks to an imaginary friend. Like, cool. That's not good.
Too, the people that are running for president, I mean, both of them, I think, were clearly too old. Biden and Trump, clearly too old. And not that everybody that ages, deteriorates like they
it's
have.
just hard, man. It's hard work being on a plane all the time.
I know it. And committing a genocide, and committing a genocide, and doing your share insider trading, and that sort of shit. That's what it is for these people.
Always looking over your back. Like, these people they don't live comfortable lives. Like, living like Donald Trump, and you fucked over so many people.
Yeah.
So many people.
Oh yeah.
And now systemically he's fucking people. Like the fact that he's even controlling the Congress right now, it's like, this should be punishable. Like, what are we talking about? He is not an elected official. Why is he wielding influence right now?
There is no accountability left anymore.
This man literally led a coup on live TV.
Well, I call it a fascist circular firing squad, but yes, he did.
He was trying to consolidate power, is all I'm saying. Like,
that's what it is.
Yeah, like, no love lost. But like, dude, that would have been really bad. That would have been really fucking bad. Our local cops would turn into little warlords, dude. More than they already are.
Yes. And yeah.
And it would look a lot more like, I do think Trump is very fucking dangerous, just so everybody knows at home. Like, I think he's a buffoon. I think he's emotional. I think he's emotionally regressive. Like, I don't think he has a TBI. Like, I think I don't mean to like be a doctor, but like, this man has like severe narcissistic injury for like 70 plus years.
I know.
This man is like, being a narcissist. I know it hurts other people, but it hurts the host the most. And that's why they lash out harder and harder the more they hurt.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, he's fucking dangerous. But this time we have to be, if y'all insistent on Kamala and that's the truth and that's how democracy works, it doesn't. Electoral college is in the way, but let's just go with the simplest. Then help us fucking get some concessions out of her. If you're always talking about you got to be pragmatic, it's like right now we have the leverage, right? Like, you want our vote? You want to prove both sides aren't the same?
And you got to prove it, because like everything that you've done under Biden is just a continuation of the shit you promised not to do and more Trump shit. And you're right about like the Democrats, when they get into office, set up the infrastructure for a fascist police state. They're always the ones where huge law enforcement funding bills and shit gets passed.
94.
But it's always the Democrats that do that.
Yeah, 94. Didn't they have a majority everywhere?
And historically, their base has gone along with it under the crazy assumption of, safety. Well, I don't think Obama would do anything bad with that. I don't think Obama. Well, you know what? Guess what?
He did the bad thing.
He did, but aside
the drones alone, being responsible for the first man to really like drone strikes, takes the humanity right out of it.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I'm not traumatizing the individual soldiers.
No.
They're doing it from a desensitized location where they're like playing on a video game controller.
Yeah.
It's very, and then look at the, how the Pentagon funds
like they're even minimizing
video game development and shit. And it's like, oh, I see.
The story that they told, the story that broke this week, I think it was, or the end of last week, about the gang raping people to death and the riot for the right to gang rape people.
In the IDF?
Yeah. And the government basically giving them a pass to do it. And
I got no coverage.
None of these so-called feminist liberals, you won't see Jill Filipovic going, we got to get in the streets. This is horrible. You won't, this is legalizing institutionalized gang rape in their country, but we're paying for this. We're paying for this. Your tax money is paying for this. It's a subsidiary. If the United States wanted to stop this shit, they could stop it, you know, not send another penny, not send another bomb. No more
Yeah.
troops.
And
No
no
more
more
ships.
exchange. No more
No more
exchange.
and no more exchanges and no more diplomatic cover at in world courts or at the UN.
And like we're asking her like, I know we gotta like ask for things, but we're also just simply don't do something. It's very like, just promise us you won't do this.
And they can't even manage that.
Nope.
The destruction of public health. The only thing I thought that the Democrats would do, and it didn't cause me to vote for them because I was kind of, they'll probably do some of it, was the COVID response that they outlined in their platform in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't take them but a couple of months to go into, we're just going to pretend it's over. We're going to get rid of
Fuck
all
it.
ocean protections. Fuck it. The Democratic Party oversaw the administrative destruction of public health services.
Yep.
It's been chipped away at for years. Reagan did some during the AIDS crisis. We all know that. Then it got a little more robust for a little bit, but they've been chipping away on it budget wise.
They privatized a lot of it.
Privatized a lot of it.
Because the
And
government was abusing people in the mental hospitals. So let's
right,
privatize and then we'll regulate them. AKA make it cost more money and
yeah, and
resources.
they don't really regulate shit.
No.
I mean, let's be honest, right?
If you're in good with them, they'll be, everything will be fine. You'll get a, hey, don't do that anymore at best,
Right.
like we were talking about earlier with the policing, when they, state police cover for the local police and vice versa, and the feds, and they come in and they have off the record conversations like, hey man, we know what's going on here. As a professional courtesy,
Yeah.
we suggest you stop these individuals from abusing their power in whatever scenario. I'm being very vague because it's endless, the shenanigans these cops are getting into. Endless.
Oh my God. And it's like every day and it's escalating. It's escalating. Yeah.
It's like sexual violence. It's straight up murder. It's planned murder.
I'm going to bring up the sexual violence because I'm going to say,
please,
that
not to be excited.
Another thing, right, about, I brought up, and this really sunk my heart when that whole gang rape thing came out last week. That was just horrific. And the fact that it came out and that it's covered, and another way that you tie them together and they're an exchange and not a training program. We're seeing that in our own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of sexual abuse. People ending up dead, sexual abuse. Look at Sandra Birchmore, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing that kind of violence every day. When you open up the paper, almost there's another cop found with child porn. Another cop. They've done the same dehumanization process as the IDF has done.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
not to be that guy, but my humanity feels so bad for other humans that are being used.
Yeah.
As they're being used as cattle, just as us.
Yeah.
And I have empathy for the humanity, but also you reap what you sow.
Yep.
And I don't want to personally harm you. I want you to have food and water and shelter. But unfortunately, when you do harm to others, that might come back on you. And I can't do anything about that. So sorry, guys. I can't promise you safety. I want you to have it, but you did some fucked up shit by just accepting that paycheck. You did some fucked up shit. But you were also like brainwashed from a young child. Like it's the fucking billionaires, man. It's the billionaires.
It's the same thing we see. It's also the thing we see in our police, right? When you see, very few of them try to fight the system when there's seldom a cop that comes in there and they quit and try to do something about it and put themselves in that position. We saw one, was it in Springfield a couple of years ago, or Holyoke?
No, there's one in Holyoke.
one in Holyoke, and
But
you
he
know,
didn't
a
see the issue with
Serpico
policing. He didn't see. He just saw it as like an individual political matter in that city, and it's like, bro, this is every town,
every town. Yep,
every town.
yep, yep. Um, yeah, it's like it's kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of
It's
fucking weird. You're seeing IDF tactics too, and they're
right.
not. And this is, I'm not saying IDF tactics. What I mean by that is tactics that you see. They're seeing the IDF use in these brutal videos.
Mm-hmm.
The rounding up of people. They're doing that in Holyoke. They're doing that in Boston when they do a homeless sweep.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing
Gavin Newsom cleaned up,
I know.
went and threw some stuff in a dumpster himself for a photo op. Imagine being so evil, like going
Yeah.
to it's an underpass,
Thinking
man.
that was something
It's
for a
an
photo op.
underpass. It's not in front of a nice restaurant. Not that I would give a shit about that either. Like, I think we should, like, if you guys aren't going to help us get housing, fuck it, you have to see us. So I deal with it. But yeah, like, it's an underpass, guys. What the fuck? You're not badass. You're fucking pathetic.
And but you know what's even worse is he knows there's a good segment of his liberal population that's going to cheer that shit right on. And when you talk to liberals, what they'll say, like in real life, even, well, he's going to get them. No, he's not.
Oh, absolutely not. And he
Yeah,
just made them start over from zero again.
yeah.
Now
With
they
no
have
paperwork, nowhere to sleep, no pillow, no none of that.
yeah, who knows
Yeah,
if their
yeah.
birth certificate got left somewhere in
Driver's
those
license.
tents. And
Yeah,
they're just throwing tents in a dumpster and crushing it. And it's just like, God damn, you guys are
yeah.
evil.
It
And it's
is.
like, then there's, again, back to the fucking macro level. There's a trucking company that has an in with the fucking government that's moving all this shit, this private trucking company.
Yep.
And the DPW workers, I don't understand why you're doing that. And I'm sure some states are outsourcing it to some private company to go clean it up.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't know.
It's
It's
horrible.
all just dark. It's just dark. Can we just put people in housing?
I know it. I
Can we
know it.
build mixed use housing? Can we build robust neighborhoods again? Like, let's do that. And like that, this is back to the beginning. It's like these capitalists, these corporatists, these fucking dummies, and they don't even understand their own system. They'll fucking rape and pillage the world, and there'll be nothing left. And they'll be like, "Wow, no growth, no more growth." Like, you can't. You got to let shit. You got to work with it. Like, you can't overfish. You can't. You can't. I don't know, over farm. You'll ruin the soil, and you have to let it regenerate. And there's a way to work with the earth, and they just don't want to understand that at all. And they'll just
No, they don't
cut
want to.
corners. They don't. It's just don't. And it's like, if you kill us all, who are you going to sell your bullshit to?
Right.
If we die younger, that's less time you can drag money out of a fully developed investment. If you're looking at us as little fucking ants in the anthill, don't you
Well,
want us to live longer so we can participate in your fucking circle jerk economy?
yeah. Yeah.
That's how I understand how it would work. That's in theory how the free market would work. Everybody would get their needs met. It's like,
You know what? Like the people I hate because of my age, right? A lot of my friends are a little older, even a little older than me. And they're really noticing the fact that, like, the world that we grew up in, like when you started to hit my age, and I'm 58, like around my age, you were starting to see the deterioration of, well, I'm going to move out. I'm going to get a home. I'm going to get, this, that. I can get an education, make something of myself. They're noticing that the younger generation's probably never going to be able to buy a home, the majority of them. A lot of them can't afford rent. People are having to move back in with each other. It's people are starting to notice now that they can't tie it together. They choose to take the situation with Israel and the police exchange with the IDF, to take that and blame what our police do on the IDF. is
Absolutely.
just kind of upside down.
It's just like
Um,
how BB is the one who's, if anybody gets punished for this and
it's
somebody
going to be
will,
him.
it's
Yeah,
going to be BB, and he might off himself before that even happens. So we might never ever get justice for that. We'll never ever have him sit for trial.
right,
Like George Bush is going to die and never sit for trial. He still, just because nobody's charged him yet doesn't mean he didn't do war crimes.
right.
We all know he did. And if they actually wanted to hold the United States president accountable, he would be him and Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney probably more than him. He might be able to argue. I was just,
They got his daughter Liz, who is a bipartisan like
oh my God.
celebrity.
It's so
Um,
naked. It's so naked, like what's happening.
so gross, so gross.
I'm hoping that the Republicans fall off the cliff, implode. Their little fascist cohorts that all galvanized the last 50 years shatter, and they have to rebuild. And
I
the
agree.
Democrats and the moderate Republicans, or whatever you want, more to the left Republicans, will start there, and then maybe we can have a fighting chance. Like,
I
we got to
think
let
that
these two parties destroy themselves.
I think that the Democrats need to implode before we can begin work on the Republicans.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I do.
Huh?
I do. I'll tell you why. It's because the Democrats give Republican fascism that veneer and cover,
Yeah.
get away with the shit that they're doing on the public level. Because a lot of people in the U.S. we're very much a materialistic society,
Mm-hmm.
um, consumerism,
Yep.
um, you know, and they're trying. The ruling class wants a fascist state. They want a fascist state now. They see
Mm-hmm.
what's coming. They see climate change. They see all of it. They want a fascist state to maintain control, which is what happens. Fascism is capitalism under distress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they use the Democrats as messaging to get the framework in, and occasionally get the Republicans. But if you notice, like a lot of the big, huge police funding and expansion bills,
Always
they've
under Democrats.
always under Democrats, never under
Always.
Republicans.
And then the Republicans play tough and
Yeah,
like drill them. Like I said earlier with our Rand Paul.
yeah,
Oh, clearly ineffective. Maybe we need to take some of your money away, because that he knows that gets the base fired up. It's populism 101. Like,
yep,
he's going to hold them accountable. They're not going to waste our money and
yep.
get our favorite guy killed. They almost did, actually.
Well,
They almost failed.
look at how many
So,
people look, look at how many people AOC has had snookered for how many years now. Um, I mean, let's be real. We're not gonna fix anything. The problem is we're not gonna even slow down the fascism, let alone reverse. Because we are right now currently in a
well,
fascist police state. If you look at everything and put it up against a text and a book, we're in a fascist police state.
mhm. I think people
Whether
have a
that
hard
bothers you or
time.
not, and you're in denial.
I think everybody's telling on themselves when they say it's coming. You know why? It's because they're smart enough to recognize it, but that recognizing it would mean that all the mythology they had learned was mythology and lies. So they have a cognitive dissonance because they can't. Dude, this land,
Yep,
since
it's a
white
huge
people showed up, has been right wing, fascistic,
denial.
and violent. No different than Israel. The IDF couldn't. The fucking U.S. colonial army and the U.S. Army in the 1800s walked so the IDF can run.
Yep.
All these weapons have been industrialized by Americans to the point,
Yes.
like, we are the bad guys. So like when people are like, Israel is teaching us, no,
No.
they think of it this like Karate Kid but dark and evil. We are fucking, the United States is what's his face,
The sun.
Mr.
Yeah.
Miyagi, and Danielson, like, and now Danielson's grown up. It's been there for 100 years now, half the time that we've been an imperial state. So it's like, even if they were independent, we're not, but like, it's our little protege. we invested all his money into it. Like
Yeah.
historically, it's not hidden.
And
Like
all of
as
that gas, all that gas under the,
then
off the
there's that.
coast of Gaza, yeah. They want that.
They want to move the natives off the land. Sounds
Yes, they do.
familiar. Doesn't it say
Yeah.
something we have in our history?
Yep,
You
it
know,
does.
hey,
Mhm.
we need to take this river over and destroy it and build a dam.
Yep.
Sorry, indigenous people.
Yep.
Thanks for helping us in the war, though. You know,
Yeah. I
like,
know. Well, you know, we're really like where we're at right now too, though, and I think we're in really dangerous times as far as state repression. Really dangerous times. Where we're at right now, it's like they are actively crushing dissent. They're actively passing legislation after legislation
yeah, it's not coming. It's been here.
to get it
It's
even
getting
further.
worse.
Right now, it's escalating in the cop cities and everything else.
Mask bans for crying out
Right.
loud. What's the? Are we gonna get fines? And if you can't pay the fine, you have a court date. And if you miss your court date, you get a bench warrant. And then now you're a
Yep.
slave.
Yep.
And this could have been somebody that had a home, a car, and a house.
Yep.
It's just like, did you ever watch that Andor show on Disney Plus?
Uh-uh.
Oh, it's pretty for a Disney show. It's shockingly left wing, but I also feel like it's them throwing everybody a bone to like, mask all their right wing messaging and all their mass media.
Oh,
And
yeah.
by right wing, I
Yeah.
mean like colonial, like standards, beauty standards, all that shit. Um,
Right, right.
the Hollywood system, for example, that's we know the CIA co-opted. If that's historically what they're intertwined with, right? Like the CIA. Like, anyway, sorry. But yeah, we're in a really dark place, but it's also good to remember that previous generations have left us clues what to do. And yes, not everything will apply in modern context, but there's clues there. Look to the poor people, look to the fucking marginalized groups like black people, indigenous people, Latin American people, or Spanish
Yep.
speaking people, or whatever, indigenous people that from Central America. They're no different than our land. Like, it's similar patterns. Yeah, they speak a different language, but like they have a similar history on the similar timeline, and how they're all kind of ethnically cleansed in a way too. And you and I exist here as white people, but we fall into the class of people that are kind of at a crossroads of like, well, if we just keep our heads down, everything will be all right. You know, like if we just go to work, we can pay our rent or
Yep.
our mortgage, and the problem is more
Yeah.
people in our positions need to speak up more and talk about it. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to be like aggressive, or everyone can have their own way of doing it. But at least like correct the guy at the barbecue talking about, I'm glad they cleaned up the homeless encampments. Just like,
Yeah, I know.
empathy check. like
Just the
like
other
there's a
day
way to do it without getting political.
just the other day, I don't know, one of my coworkers in the back room was talking about, I don't know, some migrant committed a crime, I guess. It was going on. No, no, it wasn't. It was about Maura Healey's gonna let them put tents in their front yard for the migrants. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "Just a minute, stop right the fuck there." I said, "You got so much more in common with that migrant than you do the fucking people passing whatever law you're pissed off about. So calm down." And she was like, "Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
because it's true. It's like the dehumanization of the homeless, of immigrants here is the same shit that's going on in Gaza.
Yeah, and like the anti-blackness too in this country, it's so baked in deep. It's actually baked pretty deep into the world, and then they get used as a pawn by liberals, by conservatives, and also just capitalists. Like, it's so gross how just like anti-black everything is, and then also anybody else with melanated skin as well. with association with being black. I think like I am just deeply saddened that too many people don't make the connection between how everything here is built on othering.
White.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like that the darker the skin, the worse the different, more different there. And it's like, no, they're not. they're not.
Right.
They all fucking shit, piss, and eat. Like, what are we talking about? Like, we're actually mostly the same. You guys just like power, and yeah. And how do we uphold it? And then the kick in the balls for me is how it's subsidized by the public. Our own punishment is subsidized by ourselves. It's like
some of the shit that they say, some of the things that they use, like, you know how they use propaganda to gin up anger against immigrants as a group, or black people as a group, or whatever. Say you've got a black person, an immigrant, or a gay person, or whatever, marginalized person goes out and commits a horrific violent act. They will use that to demonize the entire population and scapegoat them. Where if you stop and thought a minute and you said, well, wait a minute, every time a white person goes out and commits a heinous act,
you condemn all white people.
Why isn't it?
Yeah.
No, they don't. Yeah.
Well, technically, I think we're making I think we're making a turn though.
Less frequently.
I just want to say, I think we're taking a turn in the last 10 years about how openly on the internet, at least, and in real life, I know more women now that talk shit about men than probably ever existed in my dad's lifetime.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So like
that's
that,
true.
I'm like, and sometimes I think it's a little too aggressive, but they're not wrong. Like, because, you know, I'm a man, I know other men, and I don't trust other men.
No.
Like, I don't trust other men. Like, I am very cautious around other men because we are social. I know how we're socialized. I know what is possible. And especially if they were traumatized at some point in their life, the same skills come out very, very harmful ways for the people around them. So, you know, I work in a male dominated industry. I don't disagree when I see a woman say it's all men. I'm like, I don't know if I disagree with you there. Like, and I'm a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we got some progress in some ways where there's a little more confidence to talk mad shit. I like that. Like, I like that there's more women feeling safe and feeling like they have backup.
To say something. I think a lot of it is like, for so long we really, you know, a lot of that's been repressed. So I think that's why a lot of it is like so out there, and like you said, because, you know.
Right. Like, look at Monica Lewinsky. Look how they treated her in the 90s. And I'm not saying she still doesn't deal with being used as a pawn, as a gotcha, or all the gruesome ways people get used in media and social media. But like, overall, I think most people recognize she was sexually assaulted by her boss.
Mm-hmm.
Not forcibly, but that's coercion. If the president of the United States and you are an intern, and of course he's attractive to you, he's charming. Like, I'm not saying she's not a human, but like, he should know better, dude. From self-preservation reasons, like, you can't embarrass your wife on the world stage. Like, there's a million reasons he shouldn't have made that decision beyond the moral reason not to do it. But like, yeah. But how there is more people being like, yeah, I mean, that's fucked up. You know, I feel like that conversation's more common.
And that's incredibly antisocial behavior too.
Right.
Like, not giving a shit about like what the consequences could be for your family, for your party, for the whole country. No fucks to give. No, I'm going to get, you know, my little rocks off in pleasure. It's disgusting.
I mean, there's some sort of narcissism going on with that. Like, and clearly she wasn't the only one. Clearly.
Well, we're seeing like, I really want to get to this though, and it's the normalization of institutionalized sexual violence that we're hearing about. I mean, I would venture to guess 6 months ago, maybe, well, not quite, anywhere between 6 months and 10 months, a year ago, that story about gang raping a man to death, that would have been all over the place.
Yeah.
It broke. People don't care anymore. Like with the Sandra Birchmore case, that's not getting, I don't think, enough out there coverage as other cases that are in the news all the time. It's you cannot turn on the news or open a national publication without seeing a law enforcement official arrested for some kind of sex crime, sexual abuse, and we still have people saying, "I'll put them in the schools." I don't. I think that they're normalizing societal brutality in a way that's really quite scary
And despicable.
It-
The body cam thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to say this earlier, but I lost my train of thought because the stuff is so dense, guys. Like everybody at home.
I can't look at most. I can't look at the majority of them. I can't do it.
I don't. I have a policy where I don't because I don't need to see the same thing I've seen over and over again. There's no disrespect to the. I don't need to watch somebody's murder. I know how they are. I'm not going to split hairs about how this one's less worse than others or this one's worse than others. Like what happened to George Floyd. It's the ultimate. There's nothing worse you can do. So
Sure.
what happens to all those guys in Jackson, Mississippi, I believe, in a fucking unmarked grave behind a jail, like in the most obvious place to look for an unmarked grave. Like they just find 100 bodies, and there's probably more.
Yep.
Um,
And they're starting to crack down on activists in Ferguson right now too. They're
Great.
actually, the feds are cracking down on them. Yeah, they're doing that as we speak. And I know, like on a minor level, there was a Palestinian woman on Twitter.
Oh, is this a woman in Chicago?
Yeah,
The
and the
professor?
liberals got pissed. Yeah, the professor, and they sicked
They
the
doxed
FBI
her.
on her. Yeah, they called the FBI on her. They literally snitched and bragged about it and like thought it was hilarious. And
Yeah, that was the K-Hive lady, the McCheesy.
Yeah.
Oh, she and I famously, it went pretty for our account. It got a decent amount of traction. We got into it, and she basically threatened me. She's like, "I have a whole not army," but she said something corny like, "I have a whole thing." I didn't screenshot all the tweets, so I don't remember what one of the last things she said to me was. But yeah, I'm going to threaten you with a hashtag K-Hive, and it was just like. And I did get dogpiled a little bit, but it's like funny. The dogpiling is so funny. Like, I don't understand why that's a flex or an own because all that does is bring more accounts to my content. And some people will see it that they may have not seen it before. So just fucking mute that account and like fuck with the algorithm. If the accounts are getting muted and blocked, like they get less show on the fucking For You page or the comment section or whatever. It doesn't matter. But yeah, it's just like that's not an own. Like I got like 100 followers. And not that I'm seeking that, but it's just like, what was your goal here? And I just muted anybody that was being annoying. Like, and don't even give them the satisfaction of blocking them. Just mute. All right, yeah, yell into the fucking ether. It'll be boring without me. Trust me, I'm the most interesting thing in this thread. You aren't. You're in a fucking cult. It's the key. If you have a name called the K-Hive, that's insane. To be modeled off the Beehive, which is another cult.
And it's not an organic like support base either because she hasn't ever received a delegate vote. She's not she's never been her entire career. She's never been well liked even with her own party.
Have you ever seen Veep, the TV show?
Nah. I always thought that's probably just like the fucking West Wing bullshit.
No.
Oh.
No. It's a satire, and it's exactly she's Kamala Harris.
Oh, really?
She's literally like it's like, did they predict this? Like, or did they prepare us? Like it's spooky how close the storyline is. and it's about the inner workings of like a narcissistic politician. It does not paint anybody in a positive light. It is
Oh,
not.
really? I'll have to check it out then.
Oh, it's fucking fantastic. It's one of my it's like Curve meets It's Always Sunny meets
Oh,
like
cool.
Parks and Recreation meets it's not, it doesn't have interviews like face-to-face interview. It's not like that. But it's kind of got what's the energy? Arrested Development energy in a way.
Oh, cool.
There's like these recurring characters, like, the whole thing. So that's why I kind of compared it to The Simpsons, because it's like this universe of these, like this alternate timeline on top of our timeline. I don't know. It's fucking hilarious, and she's the best, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, for a Hollywood person. She's pretty good. Like she the fact that she politely, like so elegantly put Jerry Feld down recently without even mentioning his name and not even being mean. Just, I think that's a crutch.
Yeah.
Talking about PC shit. It's like if you're in the business of making people laugh, that's a crutch. Like, just admit you don't know how to make people laugh anymore. I'm paraphrasing what she said, and it was really funny. It was like a subtweet in a fucking, Good Morning America interview or something fucking crazy. So yeah, she went up this character. What's that?
Oh.
Anyways,
never mind. Never mind. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. I could talk about Veep all day. Actually, the last episode with the Keel, we talked about like just the shenanigans going on with the whole campaign up to this point. And I just reminder everybody again, now's the time to push. Now's the time to push. Even if you believe in this establishment, like, let's actually push. Let's not be shy. Ask it's like going into a fucking, it's just like when you go to, it's just like when you go ask your boss for a raise. You just got to ask. You got to say, this is what I need to stay here. Period. And if you want my vote, I need you to arms embargo. And this fucking exchange. And you figure out the details of who that pisses off. That's your fucking problem. You want my vote? That's your fucking problem. If you're going to have big concrete mad because they can't build cop cities now, like, that's your fucking problem. Because even if you win, I'm going to be protesting you and I'm going to be arguing against you. And the one benefit,
and they're not going to stop no matter how much legislation they pass.
The one thing we have as working people, everybody listening to the show, you're all working people. The one thing we have that they don't is fascists will always eat their own goddamn tail. Let them. But we gotta organize in our communities. We gotta know what's going on in our communities. We gotta know if Ron Selin, the chief of police, who has famously been suspended and unsuspended in your town, Mansfield, claiming basically down with working with a terrorist force to learn their tactics and vice versa. And
which I would say too is another reason why they're integrating police into systems where they shouldn't be, like in the schools as safety officers, in those, mental health programs they have for the police, the problem-oriented policing and community policing and stuff like that. So the U.S. has been doing this shit like the IDF's been doing for as long as I've been alive.
We spend more money on police now, and not one single mass shooter to this fucking day has been prevented by the FBI or the police. Not one. Like that alone, fiscal conservatives should be a reason to defund every policing apparatus and dismantle that system completely. Even if you want to rebuild your fascist police system, it is completely, utterly ineffective.
It's hosed up.
They can't even pretend they do anything, and just because they can't. Because capitalist alienation is what creates mass shooters. Police are not a fucking answer to capitalist alienation. They enforce it. So you're never gonna have it's why you can't water your garden with fucking vinegar. I know vinegar and water appear to be both liquids. One of them kills the fucking plants. One of them sustains the fucking plants.
Yep, that's
Weed
correct.
your gardens, bitches. The cops are the weeds. They're the vinegar.
They are. They are. And, you know, there's no exceptions to that.
And, I'm going to transition to Ghoulery and Tomfoolery if that's all right with you,
That's
because
fine by me.
talking about our backyard, I'm going to talk about backyard, Holyoke, Massachusetts. And this week in Ghoulery and Tomfoolery, we're going to be talking about a dragnet in Holyoke. So I got an article here from the Shoestring, local organization. We've plugged them many times. We think they do excellent reporting. We're always...
Shoestring is awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up. So if you're watching on YouTube, so it's from the Shoestring. It's written by Trespassing Charges Create Dragnet in Holyoke. Public defenders say trespassing arrests have recently doubled in Holyoke's most policeman apartment complex. Unlike most, Osvaldo Soto Berrios decided to fight his case. Dropping in for a visit on a February morning, Osvaldo was on his mother-in-law's rear porch on Appleton Street when two police officers climbed the stairs and quickly arrested him and two others on trespassing charges. The police allege Soto Berrios had no, quote, legitimate purpose to be at the apartment building. But this was a surprise to Soto Berrios, who often visits and helps with house care. His mother-in-law has a foot injury that makes it hard for her to move around the 40-unit apartment building, he told the Shoestring. And that day, he was taking out the trash for her. I don't have the key to the front yard, so I have to go around back. Said in Spanish ahead of a June court date. I don't want to be seen as a bad person for going there to do a favor. So his public defender is Alex Weinstein. He says the charges lacked factual information needing to prove that Soto Berrios was, quote, without right to be at the apartment. Arguing to dismiss his case in front of the Holyoke District Court judge, Weinstein pointed out the majority of the Holyoke Police Department's report on the incident described the, quote, pursuit, search, and arrest of an unrelated individual and only mentioned Soto Berrios 3 times. So the judge denied the motion, moving the case along to trial. It's not looking good, but he's fighting it. And this is a pretty long article, so I'm going to share it in the show notes. And so in the conclusion, Melanie says Murdoch wrote that Murdoch said the heavy policing of certain parts of Holyoke has caused, quote, community distrust of the police and other impacts on people's lives too. She says common for people to try to avoid police contact at all times. When people interact with the police, it makes them nervous, uncomfortable, and they don't know what's going to happen next. Duh. They know that this person has all the authority they don't have, and they don't know how things are going to end up for them. And this is like, I'm glad people with some local power are acknowledging this, but like, this doesn't implicate, like, this still puts the police in, it puts the police in a passive thing. Like, oh, they don't trust them. It's the person's fault for not trusting the fucking scary people. And like, I know she's kind of saying both things at the same time, the way she's wording it. And that's the internal bias or whatever. But basically, like, this is all things that we see when gentrifying is happening. And this article is really long and in depth. I really recommend people go read this. Shout out to the Shoestring. They are unabashed and well sourced in their reporting. I admire their reporting, and especially their investigative stuff. They're operating on a shoestring, so they can't really afford fucking lawsuits. So if you want to support local journalism, always support people that are doing this kind of work. It's a lot of work and there's a lot of risk. So, and we need them getting the word out and with facts, and they're using they're using court records. They're just telling the truth about what happened here. And yeah. Anyways, the police shouldn't. What are we doing? Why are the police on private property telling people who belongs and who doesn't? Is it a prison?
I know, right?
Like, let's even start the whole thing from the top. Like, he's sitting there or standing there, like looking for a key. Okay, people look for keys. Or whatever the implication is, like what the cop would probably say, you know. But yeah, the arrest of trespassing has gone up. Randomly asking for people for their papers, be on house and stuff. And when you're on house, you don't necessarily have up to date IDs because you don't have a fucking mailing address or whatever. Like all the things that can go wrong, and then you get tied up in the court system. You got to pay money. Like, how many people have just pled to, like, yeah, sure, I'll just take the fine, you know? And, but that $150 or whatever a fine could be, it's, you know, Murdoch, this person, Murdoch said, oh, it's the lawyer says these things always affect the most vulnerable, you know? And it's true. Like, what are we doing here? Like, if Donald Trump gets a ticket for trespassing, he doesn't pay it, and they, you know, put a bench warrant out for him. His lawyer goes, "That's frivolous. He didn't see it. Okay, we'll throw it out. Pay the $100 fine," and then they don't pay the fine. Like, and it's fine, and life goes on. But a poor person, the last $100 was for food.
Yeah.
It's ghoulery. It's just ghoulery. There's nothing fun here.
No, there's no tomfoolery there.
What's your take, please?
Yeah, I mean, this is like actual, like, you know, Gestapo tactics. It's horrible, and it's designed to keep a certain population within a certain area, and to police them heavily. And you know, it's really sad what you see in Holyoke. It really, really, truly is. But you see, I think it's important to realize you're seeing it all over. See it in Boston. You see it in Brockton. Some respects you see it here in Mansfield. Definitely see it in Attleboro.
Well, this is my favorite line here. Mayor Joskia of Holyoke fame. You know, me and Josh, we go way back. He isn't
know about Josh.
he has me blocked on Twitter. He's like actually violating the Constitution, which is hilarious. And he can keep me blocked. I don't give a fuck, but I think it's funny, and I'm gonna throw it in his face every chance I get. You're a fucking weirdo because you wouldn't. So he's saying here, Mayor Josh Garcia declined an interview with the shoestring for this article. Interim Police Chief Isaiah Cruz did not respond to an interview request. And shockingly, David Pratt had retired recently, so they knew all this shit was going to start blowing up in their face down the line. All their fascist fucking bullshit, and then they just rinse repeat. That guy retires. Now some new goon is going to do that, and then he's going to retire. And it's just like this is what you get for 15 years of good service. Just like then you take the blame, but then you walk away, and the union fights for you, and then you die, and that doesn't matter anymore. And that's the cycle of abuse continues.
Yep.
So that's why we do the weed out. So thank you for listening to the weed out, everybody, where we weed out the bullshit and talk about the bullshit. And Laura, I just want to thank you for coming on the show and being co-host and sharing your thoughts on the IDF, IOF, IDF, terrorists, jerks, bad people.
Really, it's really irredeemable. It's disgusting, but
so is the USA.
Yeah.
So we're in the same boats, guys. We could start a support group.
Yeah, like I'm saying, though, the IDF is just a mere extension. It's just another, you know, aspect of the U.S. police system. And
notice the tactics. Yeah, notice the tactics in places like Skid Row, Mass and Cass in Boston, wherever. Yep. What Gavin Newsom's doing in the underpasses in Holyoke. In Holyoke, what's happening under liberal Josh Garcia, who said he was open to discussion, but when I called him on his bullshit in our first discussion, he has to have his you blocked on the internet, and he definitely will never return an email you ever send, because that man is a coward and an enabler, and he's married into a cop family. So I heard. I don't have any hard proof, but that's what I've heard. So allegedly, his wife is related to a former police officer in some capacity. So policing runs deep, and he gets to pretend it doesn't. And he's the first minority, first non-white guy, and first Puerto Rican person, which is important because Holyoke has been, 50% of the city is Latino in some capacity, and most of them are Puerto Rican, like 44%. So it's like,
Yeah.
It's about damn time, but it's like for him to do the same bullshit that Mike Sullivan was going to do, if not more cowardly.
Yeah. Well, you see that, like we were saying earlier, that all over the place with these so-called progressive mayors, people that
Mayor
DSA and places progressive mass call to win. They're people like
Karen Bass.
They're Karen Bass.
There's so many. They're countless. Like we could probably do 10
more
names.
Right. And I mean,
we didn't even name the men yet.
Like enthusiastically implementing these fascist, like horrific sweeps. And, in Newsom's case, and a couple of these mayors, they actually, fought at the Supreme Court level to be allowed to do this. And, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. But the U.S. is the dominant force here, not Israel. Israel isn't even its own state. So
it's the capitalists. We just gotta remember that these people are our enemy, and so are these police forces. They're cowards. They're traitors to their fellow human beings, and we got to keep making these connections. We got to have these discussions. We got to make sure we're not dehumanizing people. So there's lots of ways to be political without being political. And so catch your friend when they talk about the unhoused, and how they talk about the unhoused, and they just want to do drugs bullshit. Fuck you. That's not it. If I was living on the street, fuck it, I'm getting drunk. Like, sorry. Like, booze is cheap compared to a home. And that's probably that's interesting. Booze is a cheap solution to life's momentary problems that can be used as a crutch. And that's cheap, but a home, which would relieve many problems, fundamental problems, that is like trying to find a fucking diamond, I don't know. Can't even think of. It's just, what are we? Needle in a haystack. I don't know. It's a lot of work. But anyways, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I'm glad that could always spend some time with Laura. We went a little long today, but that's cool. We did record this on Saturday, so yeah,
I can't wait.
Definitely ditto. And summer's winding down. Things get less crazy.
Yeah.
And so everybody at home, thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing, and always feel free to hit us up on the socials. You can always find our link tree on our website, has links to all our podcast channels, or even if you want to watch on YouTube, feel free. It's there. We appreciate the community that's being built, and look forward to weeding out the bullshit next time. So until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.